And we are back with another book review, and boy, am I excited for this one. I haven't read a story like this in a long time for this channel. And of course, I'm talking about Nick Cutter's The Troop. This book was recommended to me on a subreddit, and let me tell you, it really has a way with words. But I don't want to review the Faz book. I want to review The Troop. Yeah, I know the Faz book videos get more views, but this whole YouTuber thing isn't a numbers game. Okay, it is a numbers game, but you know what I mean. No. Fuck. When we last saw B7, aka Billy, he was doing the room temperature challenge in a junkyard compactor after realizing the true extent of his failure to turn himself into an animatronic. Now, he wakes up in a hospital, crippled and disfigured, but still alive, wanting to rediscover himself and move forward as a new man. But the past is not keen on letting him go, and he finds that the past is literally crawling back to him. First things first, no, this story is not another metaphor for the transgender experience. It's literally just a continuation of the narrative we saw in the previous entry. There's nothing objectionable or problematic in here. It's just a story. But how is the story? What the hell happened? So, refresher, we're hot off the heels of B7, which is not only my absolute favorite piece of FNAF literature by far, but a story so dark and so uniquely written that it almost doesn't belong. And then we get what can only be described as a typical Faz book. To elaborate, B7-2 feels at once too long and too short to justify its existence. Like 90% of the story is spent on Billy's recovery and him moving into his grandmother's house and starting a new life as a fully flesh and blood human. Meanwhile, his discarded robot half is attempting to reconnect and reunite with him, which should be a horrifying concept in a existential and deeply personal way. But we only get like 2 scenes of that, each lasting a few pages. The focus of this story is the recovery, not the existential horror of the robot half trying to reunite with the human half. And that is a catastrophic misfire. B7-2 is what I can only describe as a short story-length epilogue to the original B7, like one of those Where Are They Now sequences after those TV shows that follow around people with drug habits, just slightly extended. And based on the ideas that it plays with, it should have been split into 2 parts itself. This is what I was talking about all the way back in Find Player 2, if you remember. This is essentially a good story, trapped within its own existence as a Fazbear Fright, or in this case, a Tale from the Pizzaplex. Its own placement, like in the literary world, is its downfall. There are good things in here. The first half of the story that details Billy's recovery and his turmoil reconciling with his human half that he denied for so long is handled very well, and it does carry over the same themes and language from the original B7 that I so highly praised. But again, that eats up way too much of the story's length, which effectively sidelines the horror of the robot half, which should have been the focus. And the ending is just classic Fazbook stupidity. So, while Billy's staying at his grandma's house, someone keeps calling her on her phone and she keeps answering, and it's implied that the mysterious caller is actually Billy's robot half, trying to reconnect with him again. And in the end, Billy walks into his grandma's room one night to find the robot half trying to assimilate with his grandmother so it can just be close with him forever. And this should be a terrifying scene. Like, what the fuck's happening? Was Grandma in cahoots with the robot half this whole time? What'll become of them now? I'm bringing the tinfoil hat back. The stupid's just too strong. So, as the robot's assimilating with Grandma, she reveals that she was terminal and that this was her last night to live anyway. So she tricked the robot into merging with her so that she could kill it and die herself at the same time. Gonna be real with you folks. I don't think the tinfoil hat's working. I feel 82% stupider now. Why'd I just do that? This is a problem. I don't know if I can complete the video. Excuse me. Right, I'm a ghost now. As smart as I ever was in life. Now I can complete the review. Although this is the first Phas book that actually made me kill myself. B7-2 is just proof that the original B7 was some kind of literary anomaly. While it retains some good elements from its predecessor, it falls victim to the same shitty story decisions and formatting gridlocks that plague the Phas books. Also worth noting, this is the second two-parter in this series that fell off hard from its predecessor, the first being Bobby Doc's conclusion. They say sequels are never as good as the original. They should have listened. Next! Travis, the quiet kid at school, gets the idea to build a mechanical Turk in shop class. And no, it isn't quite what it sounds like. It's basically an automaton that can play chess. Regardless, Travis experiences deja vu and strange visions, suggesting that he's done this before. But what is the shocking truth behind these visions? And most importantly, what do they say about himself? Yeah, this one. I don't really know what to say about it because there's nothing really to say. I don't normally use the word inconsequential when talking about these books, but with this story, we don't really learn anything new. There are no greater implications. Nothing really happens. Like, it's nothing. It's nothing! So the big twist is that Travis is a ghost who doesn't realize that he's dead, and that he's been reliving his past memories up to the point of his death, which is why the mechanical Turk is so appealing to him, why he's getting these visions in the first place, why his father and friends in the present day seem to ignore him. It's basically a retelling of Coming Home with the retold ending of Find Player 2, because Travis finds his own corpse stuffed inside the mechanical Turk, which could be a cool scene. But again, that same cut and dry writing style I've come to hate in these books just sucks away whatever impact it was supposed to have. It's almost jarring how unoriginal and unmoving this one is. The one highlight is how the side characters react to Travis throughout the story. His dad has these pretend conversations with him to cope with his grief. The new girl at school, Marissa, is put off by him because she's one of those special cases that can talk to the dead. And his grandmother, like him, is also dead and doesn't realize it. So she and Travis have these nice conversations with each other, and they feel this unspoken kinship because neither of them yet realize the truth. But again, we've seen something similar to this before, so my reaction to the big twist was, oh, I remember this. And I bet you're wondering, how the heck does this story even relate to FNAF? Well, the character featured on the Mechanical Turk that Travis wants to build is the son. I could have done without Alone Together. Its one saving grace is that there's nothing offensively bad about its content or the way it was written, and that's that. Next. Plagued with nightmares of monstrous robot animals, Rory finds that his problems only continue into his waking hours, with doors throughout his house that lead nowhere and parents who seem to be missing in action. But one day the cycle seems to break when he wakes up and finds that not only is his house a decrepit mess, but he's also 10 years older. Can Rory dig deep enough to shatter the illusion? And most importantly, can he get out alive to tell the tale? Finally, a story with some meat on its bones, and thanks to the leaks from about a month and a half ago. Seriously, how does that keep happening? Scholastic? AFK? Hello? We heard rumblings of this one story, Dapphobia, that apparently explained Five Nights at Freddy's 4. And even as far back as a month and a half ago, I was warning you all not to fall for it. And you dumb fucks didn't listen. But we'll get to that later. How's the actual story? Well, again, this is kind of like a explanation of FNAF 4, which in my opinion is already the most confusing and vague FNAF game. According to this story, you're not just a little kid having nightmares of ghastly, stomach-jawed versions of the animatronics. You're actually a science experiment caught in a sort of testing limbo for the last 10 years at least, and that your house is an elaborate set connected to the underground Circus Babies rental, and that the reason you still think you're a kid living in your house having nightmares of animatronics in the first place is fear gas. Like scarecrow fear gas.
Would you like to see my mask? I use it in my experiments. Probably not very frightening to a guy like you, but these crazies, they can't stand it.
The actual writing is good. Rory's repetitious days and the few things around the house that seem off are handled pretty well. I liked the contrast between his childlike behaviors and his teenage body, and that reset function at the end with a tape-recorded voice telling him that he's worthless and he's better off just staying in this hell. Again, all good stuff. It's a good little story. I wish that more actually happened, as most of it was just Rory uncovering piece of evidence after piece of evidence, but it's fine for what it is. Now let's get to the actual discussion, and I'm only bringing this up because we know that these books in particular are, I guess they're canon to the games. Like, if the Mimic can show up in both, who's to say this story can't actually explain FNAF 4? We know that the FNAF 4 bedroom is connected to Sister Location's secret room already, so who's to say we're not actually a lab rat being poisoned by fear gas instead of Afton's son having nightmares in a hospital bed? Well, let's be real, folks. Even if this were the official explanation, there's still too many unanswered questions and fresh contradictions for this to hold water. As to what those are, frankly, I don't want to dedicate a whole chunk of my video to explaining them. I'm sure there's someone who would, though. Like Sandwichly.
Yeah.
Hey, Sandwichly, you want to help a buddy out?
Hey Nick, never call me again, never talk to me again, and never ask me for anything ever again.
But again, do not fall for it. We already know just how problematic the mimics intertwining between book and game is. Scott isn't playing underwater 4D chess with you. Again, they're just making this shit up and hoping you'll take it in stride. And Dapphobia is no exception. It's a fun spin on FNAF 4, and that's all you should see it as. And speaking of which, people were actually mad about the inclusion of fear gas in Five Nights at Freddy's. Yeah, I think compared to Fazgoo and Sea Bonnies, fear gas should not be the thing that rustles your jimmies this hard. I mean, at least it makes sense. And that's the least you could ask for in FNAF. So yeah, a fun spin on a past game, a decently written story throughout, a pleasant surprise after so much crap. Now the epilogue. Finally, we get to the ending to the Mimic story, I think. Lucia tricks the Mimic into a Jester Springlock costume. She activates it. Black oil floods from its body. That's definitely agony, don't at me. And she finds a way to turn it off and escape the underground pizzeria. And is that the end? Maybe. It reads like one. Like, you know, it doesn't explain how the Mimic is able to escape the Jester costume and be at the end of Ruin, but that's only if you think that the games and the books are actually like completely canonical and not just alternate universe crap. God, it's so confusing, I hate it. But speaking of which, this is book number 8 in the series. Amazon says it's book 8 out of 8. The FNAF Wiki says that there's going to be a 9th Pizzaplex book released in January, but as of recording, we haven't seen a cover or heard a title, so I don't know what's happening. It could be like rejected stories like Felix the Shark. I mean, I'll review those as well, but if this really turns out to be the last one and there's actually no book coming out in January, I will just make a short separate video giving my retrospective like I did the Fazbear Frights. So until then, see you all next time.